I like big butts and I cannot lie. You other brothers can't deny.
Gotta get back to the past. Samurai Jack.
Samurai Jack, Season 5, Episode 4, Chapter 95. If I could describe this episode in one word, it's fun. While the previous episodes felt like it had select elements and feel the original show, but with a new direction, everything about this particular 23 minutes felt like it was a concept lifted directly from the original run and retooled to fit in with the more serialized storyline they're going with. The basic rundown of the episode: Jack believes Ashi is dead, she's actually alive, she tries to kill him while Jack decides to help her, they get swallowed by a monster, Jack remarks he's been swallowed by a monster before and he'll find a way out, which is a nod to previous episodes such as Jack and the Farting Dragon, one of the more mixed received episodes, and he does indeed find a way out, protecting Ashi along the way. They wash up on an island, Jack takes a moment to breathe while Ashi uses this as a chance to take him out, but after seeing a ladybug, Ashi reflects on her childhood, or the train that substituted her childhood, and she too decides to just take it easy and breathe, taking enjoyment in the ladybugs herself. My initial reactions to this episode: first, I'm very disappointed that it truly seems like the original theme song is dead. Gendy's claims of the theme song being retooled in the interviews prior to the show's return is more apparent than ever that he was referring to Jack's new monologue. While great, and sets a tone for a more darker story, doesn't even come close to the dynamic Asian folk meets R&B sounds of the original opening in my book. Second, the season as a whole seems like an entire course in color theory, but this episode especially. Let me make this clear: the cheap way out would be to just have the usual color palette with an adjustment on the brightness and contrast, or overturn the shadows when inside a cave-like setting, but Samurai Jack has never taken the easy route in any aspect. This episode cycles through about 7 or 8 color palettes, and some being used only for a few seconds. If that's not dedication, I don't know what is. The use of these constantly shifting palettes adds a whole new layer of how we experience this particular journey as an audience. Each section of the monster that engulfed Jack and Ashi feels like an entire new world as a result from it. Truly amazing work, and whoever's in charge of the art direction for this season deserves praise, and should definitely receive more high-level work in the industry if they're not already. Seriously, I'll be very upset if the season does not win any awards in the future, just off these 4 episodes alone. Third, and what will likely be the main focus of this review, this episode did a great job at establishing Ashi's character arc and kickstarting her development so soon. While she's definitely not a full-on protagonist, or even close, who she is at the beginning of the episode is a totally different character by the end. Ashi, as Jack puts it very abruptly, is a very misguided and childish person. Despite having a vast vocabulary and very skilled in her abilities, she behaves like a child, throwing tantrums and bursting into very repetitive tangents when she doesn't get her way being the death of Samurai Jack. However, it's very understandable because Ashi was raised as a weapon as opposed to a human being. She lacks the concept of compassion, empathy, compromise, and so much more essentials that come with being a functioning member of society. Whereas she should show grief or concern, she resorts to chants for Aku, as if she's reciting verses from the Bible. We caught a glimpse of this in the previous episode where she and the rest of her sisters shrugged off her fallen siblings' demise with the mark of death is failure. Yet, we as an audience, or at least I, still root for Ashi to overcome all of her falsehoods and see the error of her ways because of the storytelling's use of making us feel all those things that Ashi lacks through flashbacks and other illustrations, but more on that in a bit. As this brings me to the next big thing that this episode excelled at, which ties into Ashi's development, and that's her dynamic with Jack, and their complicated relationship, which is already off to a rocky start. This episode accomplished formulating a very odd and dangerous bond between Jack and Ashi, even though for the time being, it's clearly only being acknowledged by Jack. Quick note, I loved how Jack killing 6 humans, let alone young adult females, has not entirely affected him as a person. Yes, it is taking a toll on him, as he has a brief moment where he interprets the flock of crow screeches as accusations for being a murderer when he looks at what he believed to be Ashi's lifeless corpse, to which he responds yelling,
They chose the path! They chose!
But even after all that he's endured in the last few episodes, Jack does not want, nor has the desire to kill if he doesn't have to. He gave the daughters of Aku 2 chances to flee last episode, and here, he could have easily ceased Ashi's ambitions and loudmouth offers by killing her in no time flat. But instead, he decided he'll once again try to persuade her views and see Aku as the bad guy he truly is and protects her throughout the entire episode. There were multiple instances where Ashi could have easily died without any blame put on Jack, but on all occasions he took the responsibility and rescued her, as he holds himself accountable for her being trapped in there with him in the first place. Jack believes if it wasn't for his existence, or if he just let himself be killed by her, she wouldn't be in this predicament in the first place. So now it's his mission to make sure they both get out alive, whereas Ashi just accepted her demise if it meant Jack's demise too. But because of Ashi's upbringing, this episode put a spin on a classic trope of a villain being confused as to why the hero's helping them. Here, she doesn't give any thought to his intentions and just persists on him being a pathological liar and harbinger of doom. If this was any other show, there would have been a handful of moments where the antagonist of the episode questions the protagonist with the cliche, "We're supposed to be mortal enemies," and then the villain has a change of heart, usually temporary or a front, and they betray them at the end of the episode. But Ashi's motive remains consistent throughout, even if her views slowly begin to change. Up until the very final scene of the episode, she has one goal in mind: kill Samurai Jack. She never puts on a front, or even helps him for her own survival. Hell, when Jack's fending off monsters not just from him, but going out of his way to get them from her, she's simultaneously trying to take him down. There's never a fake out or moment of doubt while they're trapped. The closest thing coming after they're already freed, and that's so refreshing to see in a concept that's been done numerous times before. Jack and Ashi seem to have this almost big brother little sister relationship, and just going off this episode, I can't see them getting involved romantically, but there's 6 more episodes to come, so it's too soon to make any final judgments. They have a very refined, shut up, no you shut up dynamic you'd often find in many sibling portrayals in entertainment. Ashi thinking she knows everything about the world and how it works, only for Jack to come in and drop a bombshell that she doesn't know how anything works, and everything she knows is false propaganda ingrained into her skull.
Enough! Everything, every word, every thought that you know is wrong.
You think Ashi droning on and on about Aku every time Jack moves an inch would have gotten annoying after the first 2 times, but for some reason they made it work here and got a good laugh out of me every time. Jack, even if not directly, will serve as a mentor for Ashi as she sees more of the world and slowly accept Jack's sentiments of Aku being responsible for the world's devastation. I believe through their many escapades in the remainder of the season, Ashi will get the life that she was denied at birth, seeing things on a much brighter horizon as opposed to the narrow lens the High Priestess gave her. Let me backtrack to Ashi giving me a few good laughs. This episode was the master of comedic timing. A strong part of this was the voice acting of Phil Lamar and Tara Strong. Jack and Ashi respectively, if you didn't already make that connection. Both of their performances played a huge factor into the delivery of jokes in this episode. From a tied-up Ashi swinging back and forth on their kusarigama, to Jack's awkward exchange addressing how pulling needles out of him and Ashi is a common practice known as acupuncture, to which Ashi just continues to give him a blank stare. That's also a really important detail that Jack was not only pulling the needles out of him, but Ashi too. But the build up to that line, the near 15-20 seconds of Jack just pulling needles out of him and Ashi one by one, back and forth, only to break the ice with that, made the delivery that much more hilarious.
You know, many people pay money for this. It's called acupuncture. Never mind.
Even Hallucination Jack, who has been nothing but gloom and doom the past 3 episodes, provided a laugh with not wanting to save Ashi and remarking, "You're going to save her life again, aren't you?" And the talking pollen asking, "What did you expect, a hug and a kiss?" After Ashi says she'd be happier she was killed by that creature as opposed to being saved by Jack. Speaking of Hallucination Jack and that pollen, this episode furthered development on both Jack and Ashi's trauma. Jack's manic episodes extend to inanimate objects around him, talking with the pollen, not to mention Ashi bearing witness to Jack yelling at himself. As I already mentioned, he's taking full blame and responsibility for a situation and likely any other future predicaments Ashi gets herself into just from him existing and trying to put an end to Aku's tyranny. Not to mention, his quick startle in the beginning of the episode, as the daughter of a coup that wasn't even there, was being depicted as the Shogun of Sorrow himself. For Ashi, we saw that even in her weakest moments, she's forced back into reality by haunting images of her mother, the High Priestess. She truly is brainwashed, abused, and battered into thinking Jack is nothing but pure evil and her only purpose in life is to kill him. Anything else is a mere distraction. That's what made the final moments of this episode so powerful. Despite everything she was taught to hate and disregard, just for that instance of peace and quiet, she decided to fight against her warped moral code and indulge in what life has to offer. Something that we've seen multiple times that she's always wanted to do. The action in this episode was standard to typical Samurai Jack outing, which is good to great on a normal scale, but here, it was nothing out of the ordinary for the show, as opposed to the previous 2 episodes. That doesn't necessarily mean it was disappointing, however. If anything, going up against monsters again and having fluids that weren't human blood fly everywhere lent to it feeling like an episode out of the original that much more. Overall, another amazing episode, no complaints from me, and it was nice to have a breather yet development episode. especially since next week's episode seems to be a wild one with the return of the Scotsman. But these are just my thoughts, and I'd love to hear yours, so please leave them down in the comment section below. What did you think of this episode? How do you feel about Ashi before this episode and after this episode? And do you believe she'll have a redemption arc? Because I think it's more likely now than ever. And as always, if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. It really helps us out. Follow us on social media. And if you're feeling generous, support us on Patreon. Links to everything in the description down below. Awestruck Vox, signing out. This video has been powered by Patreon. If you want to give us some more support, head to patreon.com/roundtablevids, become a patron, and get some awesome perks. Thanks for watching another video on the Roundtable. If you want to get more involved with our community and watch videos from Let's Talk with Tom, Voxbox, and more, click the video right here. Or if you want to get some more of the animation goodness, watch some Crystal Clear or Meaning Monday, click the video right here. And please, don't forget to subscribe.